Computer animation seems commonplace these days in television and especially in movies. Back when it was first released, however, CG was an experimental new medium, blazing new trails and calling for an exciting new outlook on televised programming. The first ever example of this being Reboot, published by Mainframe Studios, which ran from 1994 to 2001.
And boy howdy was that show amazing. But it would be only the first of many awesome programs the studio would come out with in the following years.
What the?
Oh hey Dee.
What the hell are you doing in my house?
Well, to make a long story slightly less long, I was experimenting with some transwarp technology and I somehow managed to get transported to your pantry. I've been stuck in your house for 2 days.
So that's what happened to my Pop-Tarts.
Feel awful about that, by the way.
Well, as long as you're here, you might as well help me with my countdown.
No kidding, what are you reviewing?
The top 10 best Beast Wars episodes.
Dude, and you didn't think of inviting me anyway? The show was my whole childhood when I was growing up. This had everything for a kid back in the 90s. Action, suspense, a fleshed out story. And then again, that didn't really matter when you had so much awesomeness exploding in your face.
Awesomeness exploding.
And a bitchin' guitar riff soundtrack?
A perhaps extreme metaphor-filled description, but this show is totally worth it. I was much later catching on, but even with the graphics that would seem outdated these days, I was instantly hooked. Mostly because of the underlying story, and above all, the enjoyable characters.
So here's the overall plot. Transformers from the planet Cybertron restart a massive war as the evil Predacons try to escape with a stolen golden disc.
Our heroes, the Maximals, are swept up with the Predacons in a temporal vortex that sends them through time and space to land on a mysterious planet. There, they learn to transform into animals and fight each other for the energy sources called Energon, and the fate of the planet too.
It did what the original Transformers cartoon from the 80s did, times 10. It literally took a show about marketing transforming robot toys and turned it into a widespread story of two lost enemy factions fighting for survival on an uncharted planet.
While also showing the utmost respect for their characters and story as a whole, it makes you look differently at a bunch of giant bots who turn into animals and beat the living crap out of each other. Dare I say it, it took something so corny and made it into a show that makes us think.
So one of us loves it for nostalgia, and the other one for innovative approaches not usually seen in a kid's film. Seems like a good enough reason to do a top 10 list.
Let's not waste any time.
Especially considering I'm not leaving until we're done.
Well, isn't that just prime?
These are our top 10 favorite Beast Wars episodes.
Number 10. Possession.
Kicking off the list is a bit of a throwback to the old G1 Transformers.
The setup is that during an Energon storm, Waspinator, our favorite universal punching bag, gets taken over by the vengeful, immortal spark of the Decepticon Starscream, floating through space and time to arrive on prehistoric Earth during the Beast Wars.
Through the cunning and trickery he's known for, Starscream wins over the trust of Megatron and stages an attack on the Maximals. And from there, it's a power struggle between the rampaging Ghost, Megatron, Black Arachne, and the Maximals to win back the advantage.
Wait, we're gonna have to explain why there's characters named Megatron and Optimus in this series.
Oh, well, they're just descendants of the Generation 1 Transformers of the same name.
And they just happen to be leading opposite factions.
And they just happen to be leading opposite factions.
Do Transformers even have children?
Don't think too much into it.
This is a pretty fun episode, due in no small part to the nostalgia factor of seeing one of the most famous Decepticons doing what he does best in a new setting, filling the scene with all the deception and backstabbing so common to the Predacon ranks. But some problems prevent Possession from advancing along the list.
Like, how do the new protoforms know about the history of Cybertron? Black Arachne is a new bot, but she's the one giving exposition dumps about Starscream's role in the Great War. When did she brush up on history? Are Predacons programmed with a detailed history of Cybertron so there's no need for schooling in it?
And as much as we love Waspinator, him being the host for Starscream makes the likelihood of Starscream succeeding in anything seem ridiculous. Seeing that face actually barking orders is strange, and what's stranger is that Starscream sounds an awful lot like Pterosaur, who suspiciously doesn't talk much this episode.
All in all, Starscream doesn't bring anything new to the Predacons, since they are all used to backstabbing and takeover plots. But to the audience, Starscream showing up is a huge thing to the mythos of Beast Wars, showing that the show will tie into Generation 1.
It's a nice stroll down memory lane with a memorable character and plenty of action to go around.
Which is definitely worthy of the number 10 spot.
No, Waspinator has a headache in his whole body.
Number 9. Guerrilla Warfare.
Before this, there really hasn't been much wiggle room for Optimus in terms of character development. He's often just been interpreted as the straight man of the team. The kind, compassionate, somewhat inexperienced leader who always tries to negotiate and make peace. Violence to him is a last resort. Whoo boy, did they throw that out the window for this episode.
While on a scouting trip to research local plant life, Optimus and Dinobot are ambushed by Scorponok, who infects Optimus with a cybernetic virus, which is supposed to turn him cowardly.
The only problem is that Scorponok, being Scorponok, screws it up, and now Optimus is a flying, hulking rage monkey bent on completely slagging anything and everything in his way, Maximal and Predacon alike. Oh, and if the virus is in his system long enough, Optimus dies. And if he tries to remove the source of the virus, it explodes almost immediately.
So, lots of complications. The setup takes a lot of leaps in believability. Like, if they can stab Optimus with a personality-changing bee, why can't they just stab him with poison? Or a rocket?
It could be to combat how durable all the bots are. Physical injuries are healed rather quickly, whereas if they target their circuits and personalities, those things can't be easily healed by a CR chamber.
But the setup, however illogical, allows for an episode full of rewards.
Not counting the obvious enjoyable action we get from a Terminator-esque Optimus wading through ranks of bad guys to get the antivirus from the Preds, this episode raises a few good questions, as well as providing some surprisingly good morals right off the cuff.
Learning new things is good?
A bit more complicated than that. More like, since Optimus is a completely raw and aggressive force, Dinobot has to fill the role of strategist. In the face of Optimus's rage, Dinobot learns the need for focus and meditation on a problem, because normally Optimus fills that role for him. Because of being the calm one for once, compared to Optimus, Dinobot learns how to find simple solutions to problems without the use of external force, and to utilize different viewpoints other than his own to achieve victory. Just to name a few.
You got all that from watching 20 minutes of a gorilla shooting everything in sight?
Yep. Number 8. Spider's Game.
Black Arachnia finds Tarantulas up to some plot regarding a new Maximal pod. After scaring a kung fu pose out of him, Black Arachnia gets Tarantulas to take her along to turn the newest guest into a Predacon. And here we get... Inferno.
Inferno is pretty mixed up about if he's an ant or not, so he declares the pod his colony that he will defend to the death. He also has a new favorite catchphrase.
Burn, 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 Maximal, burn.
Tarantulas, however, is not interested in our pyro friend.
This planet is doomed.
Foreshadowing! Megatron is unaware of Tarantulas' plans.
Blast! Where is Tarantulas? This is his job.
He's the IT guy.
The Maximals mess up both their plans by destroying the pod, but Inferno transfers his loyalty to a new Queen Ant, Megatron.
Airbaizer, the sole female Maximal, has some particularly awesome moments in this episode. It shows she has a sense of humor, a confident personality, and plenty of bravery. She easily defeats Waspinator, and Inferno only gets the jump on her because she wasn't expecting him to be a Predacon. And then because of that fight, we lose Airbaizer for the rest of the episode. It's not really annoying here, except it happens every episode.
But Inferno more than makes up for any Maximal shortcomings. He's a hilarious addition to the Predacons, and for once Megatron has someone loyal to him alone. Well, someone who isn't a total putz.
Meaning Tarantulas has to make new plans. Spider's Game is foreshadowing heavy, and with the addition of Inferno, this episode influences the rest of the series for the better. This is definitely one game to see played out. Number 7. Dark Voyage.
Our heroes may be giant robots equipped with many weapons of violence and destruction, but this episode shows they're still very vulnerable. The Maximals discover that they've been taking their individual powers for granted, when they are suddenly stranded without their eyesight, thanks to a special attack from Scorponok.
Dinobot is especially disturbed by these events.
Calm down. We can't see!
Now, unable to depend on eyesight to lead him, Dinobot has to depend instead on his Maximal teammates.
This episode, more than others, shows the Maximals working together and looking out for each other, even against things they can't see. And seeing our heroes reduced to holding hands in order to crawl home is a strong image and makes us worry about whether they'll make it out okay.
It also shows something Beast Wars does often and well as a TV show. It takes a cast of very strong characters and challenges them with some sort of limitation that, when it's overcome, gives them a deeper insight on themselves and their abilities.
And we do see the characters evolve over the series because of this.
They start out argumentative and uncomfortable about what their roles are in the group. By the end, the Maximals are close and know each other's strengths, able to smoothly take over when another is hurt, and able to work with their team's disadvantages.
Because of the strong teamwork and fortitude through great odds, the Maximals lead this episode to the number 7 spot.
Number 6. Bad Spark and Changing of the Guard.
A tie, because Bad Spark is the introduction of Rampage, and at least one spot on our list should have a Rampage episode.
So, who is Rampage?
It was originally an attempt to replicate Starscream's mutant indestructible spark with a Maximal.
He's basically Hannibal Lecter mixed with a Red Lobster entree and a Sherman tank. Bad Spark begins when Rampage awakens from his stasis pod. The foreboding X on the empty pod tells the Maximals that Rampage is loose and hunting. The atmosphere is eerie and oppressive. The killer is fierce and frightening, and two heroes are all alone without backup while this crazed maniac is loose in the jungle after them. This is without a doubt the best Rampage episode in the whole...
Excuse me. Give me the remote. Let's see what the big payoff is to all this dramatic lead-up we've been getting. Wait, that's the big tough serial killer? A guy that jumps out and goes booga booga?
Come on, it's a common trope for villains to be a bit over the top. Plenty of other Beast Wars villains have done it up to now. The creators were just alluding to how threatening Rampage is.
And then he loses.
What?
He loses to the Maximals. You're telling me the first time this guy shows up, you pay off all the atmosphere and tension by having him knocked out like nothing and then captured by the Predacons. Every other time we see Rampage, he shows his calculating side. He uses his Lecter-esque quiet voice to threaten and offer truly creepy dialogue.
Okay, Miss Booga Booga, tell me this. Which of those oh-so-scary Rampage episodes succeed in delivering an overarching, cohesive, and memorable tone, and can compare to the truly frightening ending of having Megatron carve up what's basically a bot's soul and then use that soul like an electric collar to brutally control him?
Well, Changing of the Guard ends... well, up to a certain point, it's... fine. Changing the Guard has great underwater atmosphere, the lighting and overall effects are advanced and beautiful. Rampage just looms out of the darkness, and you can really feel Rat Trap's claustrophobia. But then, it ends with a cheap gag-filled chase scene. And while Depth Charge and Rampage fight viciously for a few moments, we're gonna get to see them do the same thing plenty of times for the rest of the series.
Remind me again why this is on the list, then.
Because the Predacons play cards together!
Dang, that is pretty awesome. Number 5. Before the Storm.
Hi, I'm a Predacon and you're a Maximal. I'm busy doing something, so I don't want you attacking our base and messing it up.
Isn't that what you normally do?
Not important right now, so we're gonna have a truce.
Wait, do I get a say in this?
And since you're a Maximal and are all about love and stuff, you're gonna agree.
Wait, but...
And if you use guns, you're the ones breaking the truce.
Wait, even if you attack us?
Oh, and one more thing, the thing I'm doing is probably evil.
Wait, but...
Laters!
Why do I get the feeling that I've just been duped? And we're off. With the Predacons obviously up to something, Megatron is practically asking the Maximals to investigate.
Which he just might be.
And the shared belief that the truce remains, so long as nobody fires a shot, makes for some inventive fight scenes.
which might just be a distraction while the Maximals pull off another plan.
Which might be part of Megatron's plan to use them as bait.
As you can see, this episode is full of plots and counterplots, and it's brilliant for it because the characters are being so smart. Nobody falls for the obvious trap, but then we find out it's because the other side was banking on them not falling for it.
Like this scene, where Airazor drops Rat Trap off to sneak into the Predacon base. Megatron calls her out on it, but in the most polite tones.
Oh, and Airazor, please take that vermin with you.
And then it turns out the Maximals were sneaking Tigertron in the whole time.
Ultimately, this episode is the lead up to the Season 1 finale, so there's a lot of importance to what happens, but it also is the light fun point before things get dark in the finale.
A calm before the storm that we'll gladly take for number 5. Number 4. Coming of the Diffusers.
This one is a two-parter that introduces two new characters, both a combination of two animals. The scrappy sadistic Quickstrike and the noble White Knight Silverbolt.
We also deal with the absence of Optimus Primal, and Rhinox goes offline on a mysterious search.
Primal's been vaped. Dinobots disappeared. Stripes and the Bird Lady are off on some world cruise, and now you're going offline? Why don't we just open up the front door and invite Megatron in?
As obnoxious as he is, Rat Trap actually proves he has grown to be much more of a team player in this episode.
He keeps track of the Maximals, gives orders, takes risks, and even shoots down Megatron.
This is the third time in 3 episodes that Rat Trap's gone one-on-one with Megatron. Rhinox may be the logical second-in-command and replacement for Optimus, but Rat Trap seems to have the perfect combination of care and ruthlessness to lead in the lack of their fearless leader.
Oh, Pussycat, you really know how to tickle my joystick.
We're not touching that one.
There is so much going on in this episode. It's got this awesome Western theme, as the Maximals seem to make their last daring stand against the Predacons in a scene straight out of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. There's dramatic lighting, gunslinger shootouts, and quick draws, and a catchy Western soundtrack you can never get out of your head.
And underneath all this is Dinobot's building conflict with himself, vis-a-vis Velociraptor moments like this one.
For if the future is indeed immutably foretold, then my demise is but moments from that confirmation. For I could not live if not the master of my fate.
Also, we get Tarantulas' brilliant revival as an awesome motorcycle transmetal.
I would say the only downside is we have to deal now with the season's less attractive forms.
In spite of that, we have twists and turns, betrayals and revivals, dark foreshadowing, and 2 new interesting characters to make us happy, allowing Coming of the Diffusers to score an easy bullseye for number 4. Number 3. Tangled Web.
It should be obvious from the title that this episode is about the spiders. It delves more into the complexities of their personalities than having straight-out brawls. Being very character-driven, and with 2 of arguably the best characters in the show, it's very easy to like the premise.
Megatron's looking to gain as much ground over the Maximals after last episode's standoff as much as possible, so he sends his troops off to secure different locations, with Tarantulas, Black Arachnia, and Quickstrike given Grid Arrakis.
The only problem being, Tarantulas is still the treacherous web-slinger he's always been, and desires leverage over all the parties involved, including Megatron. So when Grid Arrakis proves to be a good spot for his new lair, seriously, he's not in there 10 minutes and he's already picking out curtains.
Well, if nothing else, he has a good eye for real estate.
He's quick to try and recruit Black Arachnia and Quickstrike to his side. When Black Arachnia does the smart thing and calls him an idiot for even thinking about crossing the big bad lizard a second time, this leads to a showdown of wills between the 2 of them, their psychic link flaring up like wildfire and finally culminating with a quick fight with the Maximals.
And the beginnings of true love for a couple of bots.
Right, Silverbolt and Black Arachnia. But more to the point, Black Arachnia paints a target on her back with Tarantulas, but finds it worth it because she frees herself from his mental control. She's not just his lackey, and she can outthink him at times.
This episode is amazing for a few reasons. The obvious ones are Black Arachnia and Tarantulas bouncing off of each other, utilizing their cunning over their brute force.
Tarantulas is motivated by his need to establish himself on his own. He doesn't necessarily need the other bots, but he has a kind of sadistic pleasure in manipulating them. It's simple, it's sweet, it's full of venom, and we loved every minute of these 2 spiders biting each other to pieces. Number 3, everybody.
Number 2. Transmutate.
While out on patrols, the Predacons and Maximals, among them Rampage and Silverbolt, come across a new protoform pod attempting to open. All sensors say this protoform was not activated properly, but Rampage latches onto the protoform's differentness and is very welcoming to the strange misshapen bot that emerges from the pod.
Without going too much into the message of this episode, Transmutate is a source of conflict on both sides. Silverbolt and Rampage both feel protective of it, while the others dislike the lack of control Transmutate has over itself. Its unstable nature makes it a danger to the Maximals and an inefficient tool for the Predacons.
This is also the most humane we ever see Rampage of all the Predacons.
Albeit he is projecting a lot of his own issues onto Transmutate. Like, how does he sense from the unopened pod that Transmutate is a kindred spirit?
Rampage Spidey sense?
Primus, help us.
Transmutate.
Dear God, how is Rampage in my head?
Transmutate doesn't seem to care that Rampage somehow is speaking to it telepathically. In fact, it regards Rampage as a friend, and even more amazingly, Rampage returns the feeling. And when things finally come to blows between the two sides, Transmutate acknowledges both Silverbolt and Rampage as friends, with no bias to either side, and Rampage is visibly hurt by Transmutate's end.
It's probably clear this is also a Silverbolt-heavy episode, and he serves as the most moral viewpoint on the Transmutate issue.
This episode is great and at times really moving. It really makes you think.
About how we treat the disabled and the different?
No, about why the heck Rat Trap mentions RC right here.
What in the name of my great Aunt Aussie is going on here?
Is RC a common bot name? Do bots even have ants? Was the actual RC related to Rat Trap? Is RC so famous from the Great War that bots now commonly use the phrase, my great Aunt RC?
Just roll with it. And the number 1 greatest Beast Wars episode? Code of Hero. Admit it, Beast Wars fans, you knew this was going to be at the top.
Let's just dive into it. In a previous episode, Dinobot considered returning to the Predacons, and because of this, the Predacons got their hands on this golden disc. Now Megatron is acting on what he learned since getting the disc back, and it involves wiping out humanity.
Stakes are super high, and Dinobot does not deny responsibility. In fact, he feels the weight of his mistake bearing down on him, and stays alert and watchful, expecting Megatron to make his move.
His waiting pays off when Megatron leads the Predacons on an all-out attack on a valley full of early humans. The problem is, Dinobot's the only one near enough to do anything about it.
And so begins the most epic fight in Beast Wars, and probably all of Transformers history. Dinobot has always been a great character to watch in fights, and now we get a 7-on-1 last stand for the record books.
By the time it's over, we hate Megatron. We've grown to love Dinobot throughout the series, and Megatron just sneers at him as he's at his most vulnerable and most noble.
To say the ending is sad is an understatement, but we can't really call it tragic, because Dinobot saves the day. He expresses himself in honor and grace, and one can't help but feel moved. He literally saves the human race and dies to protect our future.
The only problem with the episode is that they had to retcon Rat Trap forgiving Dinobot for losing the golden disc in a previous episode. When he starts off this episode complaining about it, it's a jarring discontinuity with his attitude from previous episodes.
Maybe they thought if Rat Trap was still buddy-buddy with Dinobot, it would make less sense as to how he would end up alone in the final fight.
But that bit is over with quick, though, and it does nothing to mar the brilliance of the episode as a whole.
The story of a great warrior who was honorable to the bitter end.
In our number 1 Beast Wars episode. So now that we're done, you can stop eating my Pop-Tarts and go home.
Aw, but there are so many other cool shows we could look at. I mean, we already talked about Reboot, and that ties in perfectly.
No. Another time, maybe, but I'd appreciate a brief spell when you're not trespassing and eating all my food.
Fine. But you know you can't resist the siren's call of a Reboot review.
Oh, I know.